Why do Nigeria's biggest churches have so little impact on national life? It's a question that honestly keeps me up at night. You drive through Lagos, through Abuja, through any major city, and you see these incredible structures. Massive auditoriums that can seat tens of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of people. They look like monuments to faith, gleaming under the African sun. But then you step outside the gates, and you're right back in the middle of a national crisis. The roads are a mess, corruption is a national sport, and the gap between the rich and the poor is a canyon. It's a genuine paradox. You have these spiritual powerhouses packed to the rafters every Sunday with passionate, praying people, and yet the society they inhabit seems to be going in the opposite direction. It feels like there's a disconnect, a short circuit somewhere between the hallelujahs inside and the harsh realities outside. It's like having the world's biggest, most powerful generator, but none of the lights in the city are on. What's going on here? Today I want to dive into this. This isn't about attacking faith or pointing fingers at pastors. It's about asking a tough but necessary question for anyone who believes in the power of community and faith to change the world. We're going to unpack this complex issue layer by layer, because understanding the problem is the first step to finding a solution. Let's explore why size isn't the same as influence. So let's start with the big one, the buildings. When you see these incredible church buildings, your first thought is, wow, this is powerful, this is influence, it's a statement. A 100,000-seater auditorium is a flex, you can't deny it. It says we are here, we are many, and we are serious. But I have to ask, is that what influence really looks like? Is the goal to build the biggest spiritual stadium in the world? Because if we're looking for a model, the guy at the center of it all, Jesus, he never laid a single brick. Think about it. Jesus never launched a capital campaign. There was no Jerusalem Tabernacle building fund. He didn't have a corner office. He didn't have a headquarters. His ministry was mobile. It was on dusty roads, in fishing boats, on hillsides, and in people's homes. He wasn't focused on building a place for people to come to. He was focused on building people who could go out. The blueprint wasn't for a structure, it was for a new way of living, a new culture, a kingdom culture. And that culture, that idea, it completely transformed the world. It spread from a dozen disciples to billions of followers without a single mega auditorium to its name for centuries. So what happened? At some point we started measuring our success by the wrong metrics. We started counting square footage instead of counting changed lives. We got really good at architecture and construction, but maybe we lost sight of the original mission. The focus shifted from discipleship to design, from impact to infrastructure. It's an easy trap to fall into. A building is tangible, you can see it, you can touch it, you can point to it and say, we did that, it's proof of progress. But is it? Or is it just a very impressive, very expensive container? The early church was a movement, a force that flowed through society. It didn't need a building because the people were the church. This isn't to say buildings are bad, of course not. They are useful tools for gathering and worship. But when the tool becomes the goal, we have a problem. When we pour all our resources, energy, and passion into building a bigger box, we might forget that our primary calling is to change what happens outside the box. The real measure of a church's strength isn't its seating capacity, but its sending capacity. The ultimate question becomes, what is the building for? Is it a monument we admire or a launch pad for a movement? Is it a destination for Sunday comfort or a training ground for Monday to Saturday impact? Because Jesus showed us that you don't need a skyscraper to touch the sky. You need a culture that raises people up, and that culture can be built anywhere, even without a foundation of stone and steel. Okay, so we've established that the building isn't the mission. But what happens inside the building? Every Sunday, millions of Nigerians flock to church. The services are electric. The music is incredible, the prayers are passionate, the energy is off the charts. You leave feeling spiritually uplifted, charged up, ready to take on the world. And then, Monday happens. And somehow, that incredible Sunday energy doesn't seem to translate into a transformed Monday through Saturday society. This is where form seems to have replaced function. We have perfected the form of church. We know how to run a service. The lighting is perfect. The sound system is world-class. The preaching is dynamic. We have the sequence down to a science, praise, worship, prayer, sermon, offering, announcements, benediction. It's a fantastic, well-produced, and often moving experience. But what is the function of that experience meant to be? Is the function just to make us feel good for a few hours? Is it a spiritual escape from the harsh realities of the week? Or is it supposed to be a training ground that equips us to go out and change those realities? It feels like we've become experts at creating a powerful spiritual atmosphere inside a building, but we're novices at exporting that atmosphere into the world. The function of a hospital isn't just to have clean rooms and doctors in white coats, it's to heal people. The disconnect is jarring. You can have a church service where the pastor preaches passionately against corruption, and sitting in the front row is a politician who is known for his shady dealings. He'll shout "Amen" the loudest, maybe even give the biggest offering, but on Monday, he goes back to his office and it's business as usual. The form was observed, but the function, the transformation of character, didn't happen. We see this everywhere. A society full of people who identify as devout Christians, yet the systems of that society, business, politics, education, law enforcement, are often rife with the very things that faith is supposed to stand against. It's like we're running a spiritual software that's not compatible with the operating system of our daily lives. The program runs perfectly on Sunday, but it crashes the moment it has to interact with the real world. So we have to ask, has our Sunday gathering become an end in itself, rather than a means to an end? Have we fallen in love with the feeling of worship more than the fruit of it? It's a tough question because the experience is powerful and genuinely feels right. But if the function of a power plant is to generate electricity for the city and the city remains in darkness, you have to admit that no matter how impressive the plant looks, it's failing at its core function. Now let's talk about something that's central to many megachurches, the prosperity message. And let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with prosperity. Nobody wants to be poor. The desire for a better life, for success, for your children to have more than you did, that's a universal human aspiration. The Bible itself talks about blessings and abundance. The problem isn't the concept of prosperity, it's the application of it. It's prosperity without purpose. The message we often hear is very individualistic. God wants to bless you. He wants to give you a new car, a new house, a promotion. Again, all wonderful things. But the message often stops there. It's presented as the end goal. Get the blessing, enjoy the blessing, and maybe give a testimony about the blessing so other people can also want the blessing. It's a closed loop of personal accumulation. But what if that's only half the story? What if the blessings are not just for us to consume, but for us to distribute? What if the purpose of you getting that promotion isn't just so you can have a bigger title, but so you can use your new position of influence to create a more just and ethical department? What if the purpose of God blessing your business isn't just so you can buy a yacht, but so you can create jobs, pay fair wages, and model a new way of doing business with integrity? The current model seems to treat blessing as a private swimming pool. You work hard, you pray hard, you get blessed, and you get to relax in your own personal pool of abundance. But the biblical model looks more like a river or an aqueduct. God pours blessings into you, not so you can become a stagnant lake, but so that you can be a channel through which those blessings flow out to irrigate the dry ground of the community around you. When we don't have this sense of purpose, prosperity can actually become toxic. It creates a spiritual class system. The people with the nice cars and big houses are seen as the most blessed, the most favored by God. And those who are struggling, well, maybe their faith is just not strong enough. It can breed arrogance in the rich and shame in the poor, all within the same church community. It completely misses the point. Ultimately, prosperity without purpose is hollow. It's like having a full barn with no one to feed. It's a theology that builds bigger bank accounts but doesn't build a better nation. The challenge then is to redefine success. Success isn't just what you accumulate, it's what you distribute. Purpose is what turns a personal blessing into a public benefit. It's the missing ingredient that could activate the immense wealth within the church for the good of the entire nation. This brings us to a really sensitive topic, the illusion of influence. The leaders of these massive churches are, without a doubt, some of the most influential figures in the country. When they speak, people listen. They have the ear of presidents, governors, and business titans. On paper, this looks like the church is right at the center of power, perfectly positioned to be a force for good, but what we often see is an illusion of influence. We see photo ops, the powerful pastor praying with the powerful politician. It looks great, it projects an image of spiritual guidance at the highest levels. But then, what happens after the prayer? Does the policy change? Does the corruption stop? Or was it just a performance? A way for the politician to gain legitimacy with the religious population, and a way for the pastor to demonstrate his access to power. It's a symbiotic relationship that often produces very little real change for the average person. The problem is that we've substituted charisma for character and access for accountability. A pastor might be incredibly charismatic, able to hold a crowd of 100,000 people spellbound. But charisma is not the same as the moral courage to speak truth to power, especially when that power is sitting in your front row, giving a hefty donation. It's much easier to preach a general sermon against the sin of corruption than to confront the corrupt individual. This creates a culture where powerful church members can live a double life. They can be seen as pillars of the church on Sunday, while perpetuating the very systems of decay and corruption from Monday to Friday. The church, instead of being a place that holds them accountable and demands a higher standard, becomes a place where they can get spiritual cover. Their presence and their donations buy them silence and in some cases even praise. This is the great illusion. The church believes it has influence because it has access to powerful people. But true influence isn't about who you know, it's about who you change. If the powerful people in your congregation are not being transformed in their character and their conduct, then you don't have influence. You have an audience. You are a host, not a mentor. You are providing a service, not sparking a transformation. So, the proximity to power has not translated into a purification of power, and this is a massive, missed opportunity. The church is uniquely positioned to be the conscience of the nation, to hold leaders accountable not just to voters, but to God. But to do that, it has to be willing to risk its comfort, its access, and even its donations. It has to be willing to trade the illusion of influence for the real, messy, and often costly work of demanding righteousness. So if big buildings aren't the answer, and a focus on personal prosperity isn't working, what is the path forward? Many people in the church would say the answer is revival, and I agree. But we have to be very clear about what revival actually is. For many, the word revival conjures up images of a massive crusade, a stadium filled with people, incredible miracles, and emotional services that go on all night. It's seen as a big, spectacular event. But what if true revival is not a building project or a week-long event? What if it's something quieter, deeper, and far more revolutionary? What if revival is simply the people of God waking up to their true purpose and beginning to solve real-world problems? What if it's less about a spiritual high and more about sustained, practical action? Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. There's this incredible story from the city of Jos in Plateau State. For years, Jos was torn apart by ethno-religious violence. It was a place of tension, riots, and bloodshed. The churches were there, they were praying for peace, but the cycle of violence continued. Then, a few years ago, a man named Mark Zuckerberg visited a tech hub in Lagos and it sparked an idea. A group of Christians in Jos saw this and thought, what if we could use technology to bring peace? They started a coding school, not in a fancy building but in a small, humble space, and here's the radical part. They intentionally recruited young people from both Christian and Muslim communities, the very communities that had been fighting each other. They didn't preach to them. They didn't try to convert them. They just taught them how to code. They gave them a shared problem to solve, a shared future to build. And a funny thing happened. As these young people started building apps and websites together, they started building friendships. They saw each other not as enemies but as partners. They were creating value, solving problems, and earning a living together. They were building a new kind of peace, not through sermons but through software. That to me is what true revival looks like. It's changed lives leading to a changed community. That coding school had more impact on peace in Jos than 1,000 sermons on loving your neighbor. Why? Because it moved from talk to action. It didn't just build a program, it built a new reality. Revival isn't about filling a stadium, it's about emptying the church of its people who then go out and build things that heal society, schools, businesses, tech hubs, honest political movements. It's when faith gets its hands dirty solving the problems of the world. So where does this leave us? We've seen that the true measure isn't infrastructure, that form has replaced function, and that prosperity needs a purpose. We've seen that access to power isn't real influence, and that revival is about practical action, not just spiritual events. The final piece of the puzzle is a fundamental shift in mindset. We need to move from measuring our success by seeding capacity to measuring it by sending capacity. The ultimate test of a church's health and vitality is not how many people it can gather on a Sunday morning, but how many effective, world-changing agents it sends out on a Monday morning. The goal shouldn't be to build a comfortable aquarium where all the pretty fish can swim around safely. The goal should be to create a hatchery that releases generation after generation of strong, healthy fish into the river of society to clean it up. So what does this look like in practice? It means the church becomes an equipping center. Instead of just sermons on how to be a good Christian, you have workshops on how to be a Christian politician, or how to run a business with biblical ethics. You bring in experts to train people in governance, in finance, in media, in education, and you empower them to go into those sectors and be salt and light. Imagine if a megachurch used its immense resources not to build a bigger auditorium, but to launch a fund that provides interest-free loans to small business owners in its community. Imagine if it created a legal aid clinic to help the poor and those unjustly imprisoned. Imagine if it started a leadership academy to train a new generation of politicians who are committed to public service, not self-enrichment. This is not to say that preaching, worship, and prayer are not important. They are the engine. But the engine needs to be connected to the wheels. The sending capacity model connects the power generated on Sunday to the real-world work that needs to be done the rest of the week. It redefines the role of the pastor from being a chaplain to the congregation to being a coach for the community. The people in the pews are not an audience to be entertained, they are an army to be mobilized. Every single person, the doctor, the teacher, the mechanic, the artist, the mother, has a role to play in transforming society. The church's job is to identify their gifts, train them, and deploy them. When we start judging our success by the positive impact our members are having in their workplaces and communities, that is when the nation will truly begin to change. So we come back to our original question, why the disconnect? It seems the answer lies in our focus. For too long, the church in Nigeria has focused on building impressive monuments to faith, to success, to numbers. These monuments, these massive buildings and organizations are incredible feats, but they are static. They are destinations, and a nation in crisis doesn't need more destinations. It needs a dynamic, unstoppable movement of transformation. A movement is different. A movement is about people, not property. It's about a culture, not a building. It's about sending, not seeding. It's about changing the world outside the walls, not just creating a perfect world inside them. The potential locked within the Nigerian church is breathtaking. The passion, the resources, the sheer number of people. If all of that were mobilized and sent out with a purpose, it could remake the nation from the ground up. This is a call to shift our perspective. It's a challenge to every pastor, every church member, every person of faith. Let's stop measuring our success by the size of our auditoriums and start measuring it by the size of our impact on society. Let's stop building monuments and start building movements. The nation is waiting for real change. Will you be part of it?